Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with other entrepreneurs that have overcome and want to provide value to our audience. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from our computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning our own time. So, our featured guest today is Nurse Nander. So, Nurse
Hi.
Nander, tell us a little bit about who you are.
I am a nurse with a specialty in ICU, and I'm also a nurse rights activist. Um, I am the founder of The Last Pizza Party. It started as a grassroots movement that I was inspired to start after working in hospitals in Florida. The work conditions are terrible around the country. In Florida, they're especially worse. And that grassroots movement has flourished into a number of different opportunities to grow, including a store that I run out of my office and a travel agency that advocates for nurses.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So tell me about this, the last pizza party. And so just to give some context to the audience who doesn't know about the pizza parties. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the pizza parties that you've encountered during the time that you were
Okay.
in healthcare, because I can tell you a few stories.
Yeah, so pizza parties is kind of an ongoing joke amongst nurses, and that's kind of the inspiration for why I named it The Last Pizza Party. Work conditions are absolutely terrible, but instead of giving nurses the safe staffing that they need, the safe work conditions, the equipment that they need, the protection against violence, all of those things, you just get pizza. And the joke on that is you don't have time to even eat the pizza. By the
Mhm.
time you get a moment to do anything, like it's a couple bites standing up, and it's usually cold and stale. So we don't want pizza parties. We're sick of pizza parties. We want safe staffing. We want better work conditions, and we want protection against workplace violence.
It's interesting that that must be a nationwide thing, right? It's ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I've been in nursing for 30 years. And so, we didn't get pizza parties initially, right? So I thought that the pizza party thing was, initially, I thought it was okay. But the deal is that it's not. It is not okay. You're right. It's just a substitute, it's just a band aid for not having safe staffing. So now tell me, when did your career start?
For the last pizza party.
No, when did your career start as a nurse?
Oh, so I've been a nurse for about, I want to say 6.5 years.
Okay.
I started in 2015, and I got my BSN in 2016. I started out on med tele.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
It, listen, and to them and the med tele med surge nurses, I don't mean that to say, in a negative light. It's a hard job. And I
Mhm.
think people think that just because the patients are lower acuity, it must be easier. So give them
Mhm.
more patients. That's not the case. You
No,
have a lot of dementia patients trying to jump out of bed. You
that
have
part.
a lot of pain management
Mhm.
that is around the clock. You have more families, and with each patient comes so many different consults to round with, so many different family members all asking you the same questions. It's hard. And I found it very difficult to assess my patients normally, give them proper care. And I had multiple experiences really on med tele that made me feel like I couldn't keep my patients safe. And the response from the manager was, "This is a hospital, people die." And I knew I had
Did
to
she
leave.
say that?
She did say that. This was at a facility that runs with
Wow.
well, I didn't really know what a CBI was at the time. I was a new grad, and I
Right.
don't remember learning about it. So I couldn't recognize when it was clotting off. So
Uh-huh.
the patient who had just had a TERP, he was writhing in pain. I didn't know what to do. And I had given him all these
So
pain.
I'm gonna back you up a little bit because some people
Okay.
don't know what you're talking about. So CBI is continuous bladder irrigation.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a TURP is just when they go in and they resection the prostate.
Yeah.
And that causes bleeding, which can clot off. So then, okay, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. So infusing, I mean, you have 3-liter bags of fluid continuously infusing into the bladder, and it's supposed to be coming out in a nice steady flow. But when it clots off, the pressure of those 3-liter bags is weighing on the bladder, and it's very painful. And I just, as a new nurse, could not recognize that it was clotting off and causing that pain. So I was just giving him pain medicine, but not fixing the problem. And I had reached out to so many people, but everybody was so slammed running around. Nobody had time to help. The charge nurse, the nurse manager wanted to stay in her office and write emails. Nobody would help. And finally, a nurse named Rosemary, who had floated to the floor, I will never forget her. She's an angel. She came in with me finally and said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "Don't you see the blood backing up into the bag?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "You need to aspirate." And I said, "Okay." And so she helped me. And then she took the time to set me aside and just say, "This is what happened. This is what could have happened. And this is how you need to manage it and things you need to look out for." And I was so grateful. But I stopped what I was doing and I went into my manager's office and I sat down and I said, "I came to you. I came to the charge nurses. Nobody would help me. I could have killed that patient. I could have ruptured his bladder."
That's right.
And she told me, "This is a hospital. Patients die." And
Wow.
I knew at that moment
That
that I
is
was going to have to
crazy.
transfer. So I probably lasted on med surge, med tele for about 6 months. And
And
I
then you,
transferred to PCU on nights.
ah,
Some of my best years of nursing, I spent about maybe a year or so, I think. And I met some of my best friends on that unit, just people that I wish I could work with again. I love them to death. But clinically, I knew I wanted to grow. So then I went to ICU, which is my favorite unit in the whole world. I'll always consider that my home unit.
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
and then the COVID pandemic started, and it's terrible. Um,
So, Nurse Nander is a TikToker, and like you got thousands and thousands of followers on TikTok. And one of the things that drew me to you was your conversation about the BIPOC community. And for those of you who don't know, BIPOC is Black and Indigenous people of color. And the thing that really, for me, from you, that helped me, just it was your genuineness, your asking questions. And it was something, the first thing was that you ask questions about how to handle a patient that does not want you to take care of them because you were not not the same color as they were. And then the second thing that really, really helped me to draw to you was when you said, "We're always going to get it wrong." Okay. When you said, "We're always going to get it wrong," there's going to be some things that we're going to say and we're going to get it wrong. And all you have to do is help us, give us grace, give us mercy, but help us to get past that. And that really, because I'm not gonna come in your world, right? And I'm not gonna know what is the right thing to say all the time. But
Mhm.
that's the thing that really, really drew me to you. And so I'm just so very thankful for this moment to be able to interview you. So now, next, we're going to talk about the last pizza party. So tell us about the last pizza party, and it inspired the action, of course, from the last pizza party. But the last pizza party is an actual company. So tell us about the company.
So, like I said, it started out as a grassroots movement, and I put a lot of work into it. The first year was very heavy, getting the trademark, all of that, and then building the store. So, I built the website. It took me about a month. I could still finagle it and make it better. There's always room for improvement. But I run the store out of my home office.
Okay.
So, and we have really cute pizza bags and all of that. And it's really merchandise to kind of showcase our logo. The logo that I designed is blood spatter with a band-aid over it, and it represents the brokenness of our profession.
Right.
And I have it on nursing caps and stuff like that. But we got so much attention through, I want to say mostly our TikTok and Facebook account. We were doing something called TLPP News, which stands for the Last Pizza Party News. Healthcare workers do not get enough representation in the media, especially when it comes to strikes and unions. You know, capitalism is so big in this country that there's just no voice for that in the media. So mainstream media won't cover those things. So a lot of your favorite TikTok artists got on board and will report news about strikes and legislation and things of that nature. So we got a lot of attention, and we were presented with an opportunity from with another company to build a co-op for a travel nurse agency, and it is the last pizza party right now. It is, and it's funny because sometimes when we post our travel assignments on you know, the Facebook travel groups and stuff like that, when we advertise, some people think it's a scam. They're like, the last pizza party, this is a joke, right? And other people are like, oh my God, I love the name. But it is, we're keeping the name. We had an opportunity to say, you know what, maybe we should change it to something a little more conservative. No.
I think that it will stand out. I mean, honestly, you know what I'm saying? You want it to stand out. You want it to be something that you know, that does not blend into all the other, you know, travel companies that come up.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about where, like, how people can get in contact with you if they want to.
So we will always be posting our travel opportunities on our Facebook page. We'll probably be putting that on our website soon as well. We also have the Facebook group too. And when we post in travel groups and all of that, we'll always have a link, and you use that link to fill out some information, and we will contact you using that information. The thing with our travel company is we want to fight for the best possible contracts for our nurses. But in return, we want to make sure we're supplying the hospitals with quality nurses. So we do require a 2-year minimum experience in specialty, and that's a safety thing. It's for the patients, it's for the nurse, and it's to give the hospital somebody who's competent. Because when they have travelers, they need to be able to have a traveler on site that they don't have to train excessively, right? You need somebody competent. So that's where you can access the link, is through any of our advertisements. And we're brand spanking new. We just rolled out, I want to say in March, started our first travel contracts.
Good.
So as we get going, you'll see more.
I love it. Phyllis Carter Riles. She said, hello, good morning. Good morning, Phyllis. So one of the things that I want to talk about, I want to ask you, you know, because you report on a lot of news in nursing, right? A lot of advocacy. So tell us one of the most bizarre stories that you've ever heard in nursing.
I have bizarre. You mean like unsafe staffing or stuff like that?
Yeah.
Gosh, I can tell you a number of things. The CBI thing for one. I can tell you I had a time where I walked into an ICU and they had me scheduled as the charge nurse, the rapid response nurse, and an ICU nurse with 3 patients.
Wow.
All in the same shift.
Was this during COVID or before?
During COVID. And I want to say, I think 3 of my patients were paralyzed and prone, on sedation, intubated, on vasopressors. So very unstable patients. And so when you're rapid response for the whole hospital, you have to leave the floor for who knows how long to take care of those emergencies. And that hospital was one of those privately owned hospitals, so they didn't really have a lot of the standard practices you have at the bigger hospitals. So I remember going to a rapid response, and there was a patient who was seizing. So we got him set up, but his airway was just not doing well. They were talking about sending him to ICU, this and that, but he was really hard to calm down and sedate. So they wanted Precedex. So stupidly, instead of assigning somebody else to go get the Precedex, I left, went and got the Precedex from the ICU fixes. I came back. I'm priming the bag. There was probably 13 people in that room, climbing all over each other, trying to help. And I had people trying to program my pump for me. And I said, please stop. Let me do this. And then all the distraction of doing that, when I loaded the tubing into the pump, I thought it was the Precedex, but it wasn't. It was normal saline. The problem is I had already attached the Precedex to the patient. The patient was bolused with an entire bag of Precedex.
Wow.
Within probably 10 minutes. So yeah, he went to ICU. I could have killed that patient. Luckily, he was fine. He was a big guy. He actually needed more sedation when he got to ICU. But normally that medication runs very slowly.
Slow.
So to get an entire, I think, 500 milliliter bag within 10 minutes, that's dangerous.
Right.
Yeah, but I've had nurses tell me about being on med surg and being put in situations where they're pressured into handling an intubation of a patient emergently, and just not having the medications even on the floor to manage that. So they're waking up. I've had nurses tell me that they were ill prepared for the paralyzing and proning of a patient. So the patients are paralyzed without sedation for a time, which is just horrific.
Right,
just
right.
horrific. You don't want to be awake when you're intubated and paralyzed. That's terrible. And they can't say anything. They can't move. They're just scared, locked in their body.
You know, there was a time when I had a patient. It was just a rough month. We had a patient that came in, and to like the thing that ended the month was a kid that came in. The kid was a gunshot wound, and then there was no, this kid was not a gunshot wound. There was two previous kids that came in. The first week of the month, there was a kid that came in that was a GSW. The second weekend of the month, the kid came in as a GSW. The third weekend, it was clear and everything was good. The fourth weekend, kid came in that was a fatality due to his play. He didn't know that his play was going to kill him. And then there was a patriarch of his family that came in, and he had a disease process that had been lurking for a long period of time. He just didn't know that it was there. He ended up passing as a result of that. And I remember coming out of those rooms, and so we probably had about, I don't know, 36. I'd be lying to you how many beds in the emergency department. But most of our staff, and I think what people fail to realize at times is that when you have those emergencies, like you said, there's 13 patients on that one patient, right? You have all your nurses and all your resources to these two patients who are the most critical. And so we had everybody in those rooms. And I remember walking out of those rooms and looking across the emergency department and seeing people who were upset. They were upset because they were not first. And when they didn't realize that not being first in the emergency department was a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
And, and we had to tell their patients' families things that would change the trajectory of their lives. And that's when I knew that it was, this thing is bigger than us, right? We've got to get at the forefront of it. And as nurses, we have the charge because we're the biggest force in healthcare, period. And so we have to be very intentional about moving the needle, but moving it in a different way, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And this is not going to work, for years to come. So,
hospitals, what the general public doesn't realize is hospitals are run like a business without any regard for life or quality of life or anything really. Sometimes I feel like they don't actually care about the patients. Of course, on a business front, they'll say that they care about the patients, but how can you expect your staff to juggle? How many did you say you had? 13 people?
I have had 13 patients.
that should be illegal.
Exactly.
It should be illegal. There's no way to keep somebody safe like that, but that's what hospitals will do to save money. That's just what they'll do. And can I just say, the fact that you had so many, you said kids with gunshot wounds just horrifies me. I just can't, I don't know if I could ever work in peds and see children with gunshot wounds. But that's probably in ED, you get a lot of different ages too.
Right. And I think that the thing that most people don't understand is that it's the trauma that goes along with that as well. Like there is a certain amount of trauma that you will encounter, and not understanding that that goes along with the job, and having to really be intentional about turning that needle, right? And and that's the reason why I'm so like I love all the nurse influencers that are out there, because like yourself, because we're exposing, right, the
Mm-hmm.
inadequacies in order to make us better, right? It's not because we want to come out and say, well, point the finger, you did this or you did that.
Yeah.
That's not it. We want safe patient staff ratios. We want to make sure that the patients are taken care of. We want to make sure that the staff is taken care of. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I learned throughout my career, because let me tell you something, I used to be that person that was all about the numbers. Okay, all about the numbers. And it wasn't until I understood that there is a conduit between the patient and the hospital, and that is the
Right.
staff.
That's a
If
good way to
you
put it.
take care of the staff, then I promise you both ends will be taken care of.
Right.
The problem though is that we have all these metrics, the patient satisfaction. Where we're going to
Yes.
satisfy the patient, but we're not going to keep them safe. They don't know that they're not safe.
Sometimes what the patient wants is not what's best
Best.
for the patient.
Exactly.
If their way was working, they probably wouldn't be in the hospital, right?
Exactly.
And I always think of my father. If he ever sees this, he's going to be upset with me for calling him out, but he's a terrible patient. And he will wait until he is about ready to keel over before he calls an ambulance. I'll go over his house, and I've been over his house just like, are you ready for me to call an ambulance yet, Dad? No, don't dare. Sometimes what the patients want is not what's best for them,
That
So,
is so true. That is
and
so true.
I'm all about making my patients happy, giving them a good experience, but don't expect me to be able to do that and be able to be in this chipper mood when I am so stressed out and I haven't even been able to evacuate my bladder or eat a proper meal in 12 hours. My blood sugar is low. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm stressed out about being stretched thin. So, anyways, these experiences, the ones you've had, the one I've had, ones that so many nurses have had, this is why we're fighting for a travel agency that will advocate for them. And we spent months trying to negotiate the best possible conditions. And something that makes the Last Pizza Party's travel agency different is that it's a cooperative. It's worker owned. So we are not fighting for profits for one wealthy CEO. The workers will get dividends. So anything that
Wow.
comes back, it's coming back to the workers.
Okay. Okay. So tell me how that works. So say that again now, because I want everybody to hear that, because that is a little bit different. Okay, that's a little bit different from all the other. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So some travel agencies they do fight for good things to be in the contract and all of that. Like if you're canceled without notice, you will get paid out the rest of your contract or something like that. But what makes us different from those travel agencies, because we still try to fight for those things, is that it's worker owned. It's a co-op. So we're not doing profits. We're for a CEO. So we're on a board. I'm not going to get paid some exorbitant amount of money for owning this company. No, profits minus cost of everything, of course. They're going to go back to the workers. The workers will get dividends.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, what are are there any other advantages to working with you and the nurse, the Last
I
Pizza Party?
Well, currently you get to say that you work for the last pizza party.
That is all good to
Which
me.
in itself is kind of cool because you get to walk into a hospital and be like, don't give me pizza, give me this. But so currently you can get benefits. Right now we're only located in Southern California, and we're partnered with a company called Allied Up. And as we expand nationwide, it'll be exclusively called the Last Pizza Party. And you will be able to get benefits after 90 days. They do offer several different PPO plans. And when I say they, that's our partner company right now. You would get it through them. And there's also vision, dental, and the health savings account and all of that. So there are benefits if you stay within, I think after 90 days, they kick in.
Sweet, sweet,
Yeah.
sweet. I love it. I love it.
And we have a patient advocate that we're working on securing all the time. We should have them right now, but it's our first assignment. So as we started up, we didn't have enough nurses to make it feasible. But as we move forward in larger numbers, that's something that we're looking into, is getting a nurse advocate on site. So what that means is when you walk into your assignment, if they try you, because you know they will try you, and try to give you some crazy amount of patients, because that's part of the things we negotiate with these hospitals is you're going to adhere to the Title 22 staffing ratios of California. If they try to float you to a unit that you are not trained for, things of that nature, you call your nurse advocate and you say, hey, they're trying me. And that advocate will be very well versed in your contract and will bring it to their attention and fight for you. So you will not be put in those situations. You have somebody that has your back.
So Title 22 of California, what does that mean?
So California is, some people call it the Mecca of places to work as a nurse. And I think it was in 1999, they passed a Safe Staffing Act to where they have mandated safe staffing ratios for nurses. And I think what that looks like is 2 to 1 in ICU, 3 or 4 to 1 in PCU, and either 4 or 5 in med-surg med-tele, I believe. So they can't go over that. Now, during the pandemic, they had waived it because they needed nurses and they needed to do whatever they could. But under normal circumstances, the ratios in California, if the hospitals are not compliant with that, they get in trouble. So congratulations to California for having that. But that's what we're trying to get nationwide. And that's why it's so important for people to look into the Safe Staffing Act. It is the Nurse Staffing Standards for Hospital Patient Safety and Quality of Care Act is the real name. And we always post that on our Facebook page. It's one of the things that the National Nurses March is fighting for to get passed, along with the Anti-Racism and Public Health Act and the Workplace Violence Prevention Act for healthcare workers and social service workers.
Okay. All right. So now, and you will be at the National Nurses March, correct?
Yes, I will.
And what day is that?
That is on May 12th, and they're gathering at 8 a.m. And I'm very excited. As a nurse rights activist, and anybody who does, activism, this is like a dream to have this many nurses riled up and coming out to fight. Like this is history. Like this is huge. So I'm just so excited. It's been a rough road, but when you're trying to coordinate anything this big, there's always going to be bumps. So you just have to make the best of it. And I think they're doing a wonderful job.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So thank you, Nurse Nander, for coming
on
and talking with us. Happy anniversary to you.
Thank you.
We have the Nurse Recharge Summit that is coming April 23rd, 2022. So this Saturday, I can't wait. Super excited. We're gonna have amazing speakers. It's a virtual summit We will be learning how to recharge and how to transition into entrepreneurship if that's what you choose. So join us. I ask that you like and share this podcast. And you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.